Normally when we think of a weapon, we just assume the person swinging it knows, well, which end is the handle and which end is the blade.
Yeah, that's generally the hope, right?
Right. I mean, if someone swings a sword in your direction, they fully expect it to cut you, not themselves.
Exactly. It comes down to basic mechanics and, intent. You're deliberately directing kinetic energy outward, away from your own body, to inflict damage on a target.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, and in human sociology, weaponized language functions the exact same way. Insults are basically linguistic blades that we've sharpened over centuries.
Oh, really?
We use them to establish hierarchies, enforce in-group and out-group dynamics, and ultimately just to make the target feel incredibly small.
But what happens when you look closely at the mechanics of one specific word? Like an insult that has been swung around for generations, and you start to realize the blade is actually pointing backward.
That's where things get really interesting.
Today, we are taking a deep dive into some fascinating excerpts from a piece of writing called The Anatomy of a Reclaimed Insult.
It's such a brilliant source text.
It really is. The mission for today is to completely deconstruct one of the most common, weaponized, gendered insults in the English language. We're talking about the word bitch.
And if you are someone who loves a good aha moment or a total paradigm shift, you will want to settle in for this one.
Grab a coffee, folks.
Seriously. Because when you slow down and examine this word, not just linguistically, but biologically and historically, the way you hear language, and really the way you understand social power, is going to shift fundamentally.
Okay, let's unpack this. The source text starts by examining the peculiar violence embedded in this word.
Right.
Because when someone deploys it, the intent is almost always to diminish the target. The speaker is trying to place themselves in this elevated category of the, rational human.
While forcefully shoving the woman they're speaking to down into the category of the irrational reactive animal.
Exactly. They are trying to strip away her dignity and her personhood.
That is undeniably the speaker's intent. But what's fascinating here is what happens when the author suggests a sort of thought experiment.
I love this part.
Right. She says, let's take the speaker at their literal word. Instead of reacting to the emotional sting of the insult, let's pause. Let's look at the actual biological creature being invoked.
And the moment you look at a female dog in the wild, the insult just completely collapses in on itself.
It really does. It falls apart instantly.
Reading this part of the text, it immediately reminded me of like a cartoon villain setting up a poorly designed trap in the woods.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You know the ones. They dig a deep pit, cover it meticulously with leaves, step back to admire their own genius, and then immediately fall straight into their own pit.
Yep, just right down to the bottom.
Because when you actually define the role of a female dog, you aren't describing some passive ornament sitting on the sidelines of nature. You were describing the matriarch of the pack.
And the biological reality of that role is staggering. I mean, consider what she physically endures.
It's intense.
It is. She carries life inside her own body, and she navigates the intense physical trauma of labor with absolutely no anesthesia and no apology.
Zero.
And once that process is over, she doesn't get to retreat to a spa to recover in peace. She rises immediately to protect what she has just made.
She's a primary hunter.
Exactly. She is a frontline defender of her territory.
She's essentially running the operational logistics of an entire community.
Yeah.
The text details how she communicates, and it isn't just, mindless barking at the wind.
Oh, not at all.
She operates through a highly sophisticated hierarchy. She uses posture, eye contact, and these incredibly complex chemical signals that dictate who eats, who moves, and who survives.
Those chemical signals alone are just a marvel of evolutionary biology. Through her olfactory cues and pheromones, she can calm a frantic pup. Or she can assert dominance over an adult male.
Wow.
Yeah, or she can signal an immediate coordinated attack to the rest of the pack. She literally manages the autonomic nervous systems of her community through her own biology.
That is wild.
And perhaps the most crucial element the text highlights is her historical resilience. I mean, she has survived 10,000 years of intense human domestication.
Right, because humans took wolves from the wild steppe.
We altered their environments, changed their diets, bred them into wildly different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Yet through all of that manipulation, she never lost the core thread of her fierce maternal protectiveness.
She adapted to living alongside us. But her wildness never broke.
Exactly.
So going back to that trap analogy, the person deploying this word thinks they are throwing dirt. They think they're reducing a woman to something lesser. But if you look at the literal scientific definition of the creature they just invoked, they're accidentally throwing a crown.
You are, by literal definition, calling her a creature of immense maternal ferocity. You are acknowledging her embodied physical intelligence.
Yeah.
You're pointing out her unbreakable pack loyalty. It means you're calling her someone who will bleed, heal, bleed again, and still show up to defend what she loves.
Structurally speaking, the insult is a complete failure. It functions as a massive compliment wrapped in sheer biological ignorance.
A compliment wrapped in ignorance. I love that framing.
It's so true, though. But, okay, if the literal creature represents all this wild power and resilience, it raises this massive contradiction.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Right. Why is it that when society wants to insult that same woman's courage, they use phrases like, she doesn't have balls?
The anatomical mapping of courage.
Yes.
The author points out this fascinating cultural quirk where we have, like, collectively decided to equate bravery, toughness, and audacity with a very specific piece of male anatomy.
Which makes absolutely zero sense when you look at the actual architecture of the human body. Let's just think about this logically for a second.
Please do.
Imagine you possessed the most valuable, precious item in the world.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a diamond that represents your absolute bravery and your unshakable boldness.
Okay, I'm with you.
Would you choose to display that priceless item in a fragile, temperature-sensitive glass box dangling by a thread on your front porch in a bad neighborhood?
I imagine you would not.
No.
You would take that priceless item and bury it in a reinforced internal titanium vault deep inside the structural framework of the house.
Exactly.
And that is exactly the physical irony the author unpacks here. Testicles are, by their very biological design, some of the most physically vulnerable external organs in human existence.
They literally have to hang outside the body because they cannot even withstand standard core human body temperature.
Right. 98.6 degrees is too hot for them to function.
It's absurd when you think about it as a metaphor for toughness.
It really is. They require constant thermoregulation, and they require constant physical protection from the environment because a remarkably slight impact causes debilitating systemic pain.
Yeah, any guy can attest to that.
Exactly. Now, contrast that incredibly fragile external setup with the gonads that produce eggs.
The ovaries.
Yes. Ovaries are held internally. They're deeply embedded within the pelvic cavity, shielded by the heaviest, strongest bones in the human skeletal system, the ilium and the sacrum.
And the surrounding tissue can expand to accommodate the growth of an entirely new human being and then just snap back into place.
It's incredible structural integrity.
So if we are going to play this cultural game where we map human courage onto specific physical anatomy, internal architecture objectively wins out over vulnerable external structures.
Yeah.
The whole metaphor for toughness is just structurally backward.
It is a profound anatomical irony. We've culturally equated audacity with a body part that is functionally fragile.
So backward.
But, the source text makes a crucial pivot here. Biology is just a metaphor. Courage doesn't actually live in anyone's gonads, male or female.
Right.
True courage resides in the nervous system.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate here for a second,
Yes.
specifically regarding how the text maps emotional resilience to biology.
Sure.
The author makes this clever connection between having balls and the act of bawling, as in crying.
Yes, B-A-W-L-I-N-G.
Right. But is there actually a physiological link there, or is this just linguistic wordplay? So what does this all mean for our understanding of emotional resilience? Because society constantly tells us that crying, whether it's in a tense boardroom meeting or during a heated argument, is the ultimate sign of weakness.
Yeah, we're taught it means you are failing to hold it together.
Exactly. Does the metaphor of bawling as courage actually hold up under scientific scrutiny?
It's an excellent challenge because it does sound like a mere pun until you look at the neurobiology of emotion.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let's define what courage actually is in the nervous system. Courage is the body's willingness to stay present when the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, is flooding your brain with adrenaline and screaming at you to run away.
Just screaming, get out of here.
Right. It's the capacity to stand your ground and speak a true thing in a hostile room. So when the text talks about bawling, it isn't talking about a breakdown of that courage.
It's not.
No. It is talking about a highly evolved physiological pressure release valve for a system under an enormous load.
Oh, like a boiler room.
Yeah.
If the pressure inside an industrial boiler builds to a critical level, the steam has to vent somewhere, or the entire structural system compromises and explodes.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to look at it. Let's look at the actual chemistry of emotional tears. They aren't just salt water.
Right, they're different from, like, allergy tears.
Completely different. Emotional tears contain high levels of cortisol and prolactin, which are stress hormones.
Wow.
When a living being is so fully alive and staying so incredibly present in a high-stakes situation, her emotional body can no longer contain the physical sensation of that experience.
So the body just has to get it out.
Crying is literally the body excreting stress hormones from the bloodstream to lower blood pressure and keep the brain functioning clearly.
So the tears are the steam venting. You aren't breaking down or failing. Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do so the boiler doesn't explode.
The capacity to bawl isn't evidence of weakness. It is physiological evidence of depth.
I love that. Evidence of depth.
It proves you are carrying a massive load, and instead of fleeing, your body is regulating itself so you can stay in the room.
You haven't run away. You're just venting the steam so you can keep standing your ground. And this leads us to the existential core of why this specific insult gets thrown at women who show that kind of raw intensity. The speaker wants to avoid dealing with that depth.
Oh, absolutely.
So when a woman stands her ground, maybe she's venting steam, maybe she's just refusing to back down, the speaker will often throw out the phrase, "Is she even a she?"
This raises an important question, and it cuts right to the cognitive dissonance of the person throwing the insult.
Yeah.
They are trying to push her out of the category of human woman entirely. They're implying that by behaving so fiercely, she has somehow lost her femininity.
Like she's disqualified from being a woman.
Right. But the source suggests that by asking, "Is she a she?" think they accidentally trigger a trap door under their own argument.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because what if the she-ness of a woman isn't a fragile, lesser category at all?
Exactly.
The speaker is trying to strip someone of their humanity by calling them a female animal, which, as we established earlier, only works if you genuinely believe a female animal is weak.
But we know the female animal is the matriarch, the hunter, the protector.
Right.
So when they ask, "Is she even a she?" they are inadvertently questioning if she is worthy of belonging to this ancient, formidable category of fierce protectors.
And the text offers such a brilliant way to handle that moment. It reminds me of a martial arts redirect, like an Aikido.
Oh, how so?
Well, when someone throws a punch at you, instead of blocking it head on and absorbing all that brutal impact, you just step aside, grab their wrist, and use their own momentum to flip them over.
That is so true. Declining the frame is an incredibly powerful cognitive tool.
It really is.
You aren't arguing with their premise. You are rejecting the value judgment they've attached to it. The speaker says, you are acting like a wild, fiercely protective female animal, fully expecting you to feel shame, to apologize, and to cower.
And you simply look at them and say, "Yes, I am."
Suddenly, the attacker has no leverage. The cognitive dissonance is entirely theirs. You didn't fight the word, you just took away its power to insult you.
You neutralize the weapon by embracing the reality of the term. A woman who answers yes to this insult hasn't been degraded. She simply isn't confused about her own power.
Exactly.
And this martial arts redirect this refusal to accept the negative frame. It isn't just a modern internet psychology trick.
No, not at all.
The source text connects this exact energy back to ancient pre-institutional human history. And by pre-institutional, we mean going back to a time before courthouses, organized religions, or nation-states existed to dictate how women should behave.
This reclamation is heavily grounded in sacred tradition. Throughout human history, long before written language, the fierce female animal has always represented the sacred feminine.
It's so deeply rooted.
It is. This creature was never diminished in mythology. She represented power in its most primal, unfiltered form.
The mythological references the author brings in really make this click. Instead of just looking at them as a list of names, let's look at how they actually functioned in their societies. Take Hecate from ancient Greek mythology.
A prime example.
Right. She's the goddess of magic, the night, and the crossroads.
And how is Hecate universally depicted?
With dogs, right?
Yes, she is accompanied by howling hounds. The Greeks understood that the female dog wasn't a symbol of base degradation. It was the ultimate guardian of the threshold.
Oh, wow.
The hounds of Hecate protected the liminal space between the physical world and the spiritual world. Ancient cultures saw in the female dog a creature uniquely capable of navigating the darkest, most terrifying parts of human existence.
And then there's the she-wolf of Rome. This is a story that literally shaped the Western concept of civilization.
Oh, totally.
You've got two human infants, Romulus and Remus, abandoned to die in the wilderness, who are found and nursed by a fierce she-wolf.
She doesn't consume them. Her maternal ferocity extends across species to protect them.
Yeah,
The foundational myth of the entire Roman Empire rests entirely on the undeniable generative power of a female animal. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these ancient cultures understood something that modern insults desperately try to erase.
which is what?
They understood that female animal energy is pre-language and pre-apology.
Pre-apology. I absolutely love that concept. A hound doesn't apologize for guarding the gate.
Mm.
A lioness doesn't apologize for hunting. She just does what is necessary for survival.
So when a woman is insulted with this specific word today, she is accidentally being handed the keys to this ancient lineage. The person insulting her has no idea what they're actually invoking. They think they are handing her a badge of shame, but they are actually handing her the keys to cage hounds and the she-wolf's den.
And she has a choice in that exact moment.
Mm.
She can refuse the gift. She can accept the frame of the speaker and internalize the shame the word was designed to produce. Or she could remember what the literal creature actually is: generative, protective, loyal, and unafraid of her own teeth.
Unafraid of her own teeth. That's powerful.
What a vivid way to pull all of this together. We started this deep dive looking at a word meant to tear someone down, a cultural trap meant to catch a woman and make her feel small.
Right.
But simply by applying biological reality, anatomical fact, neurobiology, and historical context, the trap completely dismantled itself.
It really did.
We saw how internal pelvic architecture structurally wins out over fragile external organs. We learned that crying bawling isn't weakness, but a critical cortisol-releasing pressure valve for a highly functioning nervous system that refuses to back down.
Venting the steam.
Exactly. And we discovered that the she-ness the insult tries to mock is actually tied to a sacred pre-apology lineage of threshold guardians.
The core takeaway here is how critical thinking completely changes your relationship with language. You don't always have to expend your precious energy fighting back against a weaponized word.
Yeah, that takes so much energy.
It does. Sometimes you disarm it simply by taking it literally. You step aside and let the insult collapse in on its own lack of logic.
It's incredibly empowering for the listener. It fundamentally changes how you hear the labels people try to stick on you.
Which leaves us with a rather profound implication to consider.
I'm all ears.
If reclaiming a single insult can instantly connect us back to such an ancient primal power, what other words currently being used to shame people are actually just buried treasure maps pointing the way to our hidden strengths?
Oh, that's a great thought.
Next time someone tries to hand you a label meant to diminish you, ask yourself what power are they accidentally admitting you possess?
That is going to stick with me. So next time you find yourself standing your ground, maybe even venting a little steam in the process, and someone tries to set that linguistic trap, just step over
Just
it.
let them fall in.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this custom deep dive into the source material. We'll catch you next time.